So in this video, I'm going to talk about why the Kerch Bridge will be destroyed or disabled. I don't think it's a if, I think it's a when. I can't predict the when, but unless Putin decides that he wants to give up on the war sometime really soon, the Kerch Bridge will be destroyed. Now, if you know me, I'm a professor who goes out of my way to exhaustively check all my facts. I show you the resources that I'm drawing the newspapers or the videos that I'm drawing my conclusions from, and I make sure I cite my sources. So to say this is, it sounds like a leap, but it's really not. I think it's inevitable. Okay, so the Crimean Bridge has been hit a number of times. It was hit in October for the first time. It was hit about just a few weeks ago in July, and then it was hit again on August 12th. And we don't actually know everything that we ought to know about. Well, no, let me say, it wasn't hit again necessarily on August 12th. There was an attack on it, and we don't know if it was hit. We don't know what happened. So I'm clarifying just for the sake of precision. Okay, I want to show you this little clip from Sky News, and then we'll talk about a couple of things. We'll see Putin as he's unveiling it, and we'll talk about why we haven't seen satellite images and what we're going to see next. So let's listen to this. This is Sky News talking about the
Now, good to
Kerch
see you,
Bridge.
Sean. Any developments today? What's happening?
Oops, not there.
Well, as you've said,
We want to look at it
time,
about...
though, that the Ukrainians have targeted this bridge. Back in October last year, you remember there was this huge explosion that took out, and it's still not clear now what actually caused this, but
So
you can see the
October's
devastation there.
Attack.
That significantly damaged the bridge, and that was not back in action until earlier on this year, both the rail section and the road section. And then, of course, it came back into use earlier this year, then was re-attacked by Ukrainians back in July. And this time, it was only the road section that was damaged, and only about half of that road section, as we can see here. There's a big chunk taken out of it. It's been regularly attacked. President Putin took a personal interest in building this bridge. It was his company that built it, and he drove his personal car across.
Okay, so yeah, let's look at that. President Putin's, when he unveiled the bridge, now this was back in 2017, 2018, the roadway was finished, and then the rail line, or vice versa. So let's look at this. And there we see Putin driving. Good job. He can stay in his lane. Great stuff. Okay, so it's a vanity project for Putin. All right, let's go back to this video.
To open it, so this will be personally damaging to Putin.
Yeah, much heralded bridge by Putin. Does that mean that the Ukrainians are going to continue their focus on this bridge?
Almost certainly, but I think this is part of a much bigger play here. The Russian logistics are facing a huge challenge at the moment, trying to support the front line all the way across Ukraine. Just by way of example, you know, the Russians are using 500,000 kilograms of artillery shells every single day, and therefore they've got to resupply. Now, one of the routes of resupply is across the north there through Russian-occupied Ukraine. It's long, it's dangerous. That's quite difficult. The second way is via maritime through the Crimean port of Sebastopol, but that's why the Ukrainians have targeted 2 of the Black Sea Fleet vessels. If you remember, they were severely damaged in port. Third way is to actually a land route via the Kerch Bridge. The Kerch Bridge, as you say, will be regularly targeted. And then if you take those supplies up from Crimea into Ukraine, there's only 3 arterial roads to the north of Crimea. The Ukrainians have targeted the eastern one, the Chongar Bridge, and that's forcing the Russians to go out to the far side of Ukraine, all of which is making life really difficult for Russian logistics support. It's a lot easier for them to support across in the Donbass than it is over here, and that's probably why the Ukrainians have opened up the front across the Dnieper River, just putting even more pressure on Russia. But bottom line is, this is all about taking territory for Ukraine. So far, despite lots of fighting, week 9 of the counteroffensive, still no evidence of a significant breakthrough by Ukraine.
Okay, so that's correct. There's not a significant breakthrough by Ukraine at this point. So there's a reason why this bridge is under attack, and it's under attack for logistical, military purposes, as well as political purposes, and we're going to cover that in just a moment. So what was interesting here was there was this, on Twitter, there was something showing that everyone was curious about what happened to the Crimean Bridge after the attack. Well, dear friends, the railway track was put out of commission according to the satellite image published today, but we're not seeing more satellite. And why aren't we seeing more satellite? Or I would look for Suchomimus to see if he would put out satellite or what was going on there. When will we have satellite images of the Kerch Bridge? Just a few hours ago. And we're not seeing like lots of people with phones taking pictures of what's going on, whether there's traffic or whether there's not. Now we know that the bridge was again closed, and look what's going on under the bridge. So the shipping underneath it, and this is a live shot of marine vessel traffic. And yeah, I mean, so the bridge is closed and, well, periodically closed. I don't know if at this moment it's open or closed, but it's been closed and then open and then closed again, and the traffic underneath is not working. And so this is an important thing, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And then we have, now if you want updates, you can go to Philadial with the NAFO hashtag at GMODMEGA, who's going to provide periodic updates every 6 hours on the bridge. So you can go do that. So here's the thing. Bottom line is this: the Kerch Bridge is important. It's important to Russia, but they can't defend it. It's important to Ukraine, and they will destroy it. I'm telling you, I'm staking my reputation that if the war goes long enough and they get the weapons that will be able to attack it, they will destroy it. Militarily, it's important because the Russians can move men and material. Politically, it's important because it was Putin's vanity project. The road was completed in 2017, and then the rail line was completed in 2018. Putin returned this land to Russia by seizing Crimea and then connecting Crimea to the mainland. He's returning this historical Russian land to Russia. That's the way he sees this. It's the home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Crimea is, and so it's very, very important that it's connected in Putin's thinking. Okay, economically, they have to target the Kerch. Remember, if you can spark a event that's going to spook those who are trading with Russia. Like, let's go back to this Black Sea map. If the Kerch Bridge, let's look at the Kerch Bridge and think, like, if that's exploded or broken or there's no traffic on it or something like that, economically, those vessels that are going to want to go through here are not going to be nearly as inclined to go through there. They're not going to want to risk it, or the insurance on the vessels is going to spike, and that's going to have an economic impact on the war. And remember, there's a military war, an economic war, a political war, an information war, and they're all stacked up one on top of each other. So the counteroffensive lines, this is really interesting. The counteroffensive, we think of like there's not a lot of movement, but there's been a huge movement in the Black Sea in the counteroffensive, and it's all been with Ukraine's momentum. And then finally, let me clarify that. So while there's little progress in the minefields, and we know that the Russians have created this massive defensive line, Black Sea is really open for moving that line up and down. Okay, Russia used to own it. Now they're playing defense. And then what I talked about earlier, psychologically, if there's no traffic on the Kerch, or there's a big chunk of the Kerch blown, if you're a captain sailing through that, what are you thinking every time you're going through there? And how many times do you really want to go through there to the Sea of Azov? Now, if you're not willing to go through to the Sea of Azov, let me zone out a little bit. If you're not willing to go further into the Sea of Azov, then that means that you can go to another Russian port, right? But there's only so many Russian ports along the coast, and you're going to overwhelm them. It's like putting a penny in the fuse box. The other ports only have so much capacity, and so that's going to become a problem. Just like the only way out will be through the Kherson and Zaporizhia in order to get out. So that's going to overwhelm the road systems as well. Boats can get across, but they're slower to transport, and so this is going to provide headache after headache after headache. So the long and short of everything that I've said is that bridge is going to be either destroyed or at least put out of commission in some way, shape, or form before this war is over. Okay, that's my argument. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, tell me how I'm wrong. If you think I'm right, tell me that you agree. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the coffees, the super thanks. Thank you more than anything else for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you will be too.